to this week's edition of the Yamhill Leadership Roundtable. And it's good to have Betsy Emery with us. Betsy Emery, U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley's field representative. We have Pat Evans from Turtledove Shelters. We have Mayor Rachel King from the city of Amity. We have Mayor Linda Watkins from the city of Carlton. And I'm Casey Kula, Yamhill County Commissioner. And welcome. So I'm actually going to ask Betsy, what's new in the U.S. Senate, and specifically, when are we going to get the BBB? And then a lot of other questions.
When are you going to get what?
The Build Back Better.
Oh, that's a question. I don't know that anyone's crystal ball can answer, unfortunately, as of now. But yeah, what's going on in DC? So these are the days when I'm glad I work on stateside issues. I think my DC counterparts are definitely working very long days right now. But a couple of things that I think may be good for you, Casey, at least to know. So CDS funding, unfortunately, has been pushed back. The continuing resolution to keep my job and every other federal worker's job has been extended until February 18th. And so at that point is when the Congress will pick up whether or not they're going to extend the continuing resolution again or pass a omnibus budget. So that's one thing I definitely want to flag for you. I'm going to do some of that proactive outreach. We're waiting on some final details from our appropriators. So that's one thing. And really just everything in DC is a disaster right now because they're working through 3 major spending bills. And then there's been some interesting politics weighing out on the National Defense Spending Bill and some struggles to come to agreement on some of the amendments that are going to be included, specifically some sanctions against Russia and regarding a pipeline and a couple of other projects. So that has really been impacting the Senate schedule. And then infrastructure passed. We don't have any of the guidance yet. I'm sorry. As soon as I know, I will be in touch about what that looks like and how it might funnel. And then Build Back Better. I mean, the Congress wraps, right, at the end of December. So then we move into a new session, right, where we'll have to introduce all of our bills again and all of that stuff. And so I think there's a lot of interest in trying to get Build Back Better passed by the end of the year. And I know that I think 8 of the 12 Senate subcommittees have released their draft legislative text and it's being reviewed. So, but the biggest appropriation committees haven't released their text yet. So we're getting there, but we're not there. So yeah, things in DC are definitely evolving on a daily basis, I'll say.
And you and I had talked about doing a, you and Fritz explaining to folks how to do a really effective presentation. But it sounds like with the spending bill getting put off, you're not really going to have information on the next one until much later. Is that correct?
No, we will be, Fritz and I will be running February is going to be a horrible time for Fritz and I, but we will be here to support you all as you get your CDS appropriations. We'll be working through that process with all of our recipients from this year, and then we'll also be collecting, starting the outreach process for the upcoming year. So I think if you still want to stay on for January, Fritz and I are working towards that as a goal for starting the outreach and talking to everyone about what a CDS project looks like. I'm personally really interested in trying to get more projects in Yamhill and Polk County, especially because Marion really took the bulk of a lot of the CDS projects last year. So I'm personally really trying to round out where the money is going.
And so January 10th, then I will check my date, but I believe it's January 10th. Betsy Emery and Fritz Graham will do a presentation on what essentially how to go through the process of applying for congressionally directed spending, which hopefully, well, by then, at least the cities of Amity and Carlton will know if they're getting any of the American Rescue Plan money for water and sewer infrastructure, which in theory can act as the local interest or the local match for other funding. So. But January 10th, and I'll send an email out to people. I just haven't yet because I didn't confirm with Betsy. Great. Are there questions for Betsy beyond that? I have a lot of them, but I probably should have written them down. One thing I wanted to flag for you, Betsy, is that there's the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde and Siletz both have, I believe with congressional support, submitted bills to change, to reinstate hunting and fishing rights for their tribes. And so I just wanted to flag that. I'm assuming you knew about it.
We introduced that bill. We introduced it.
There you go. Okay, thank you. And so my understanding is that it has to get passed and then it comes back to the state. And then it goes to a federal court judge.
No comment on that last piece. But yeah, that's my understanding, is it basically gives the tribe the right to renegotiate their hunting and fishing rights on their traditional homelands with the state, which currently is limited based off the way that their reservation language was written when they were reinstated.
Right. And that's so some context for others. In Washington State, there's a federal court decision called the Bolt decision that really defines the rights. It provided or it recognized the rights through a federal court decision. And so that has had a ripple effect for communities. The Washington State Department of Agriculture, or sorry, the Transportation has to, for example, pull out fish passage barrier culverts kind of all around the state. So ideally in Oregon, we get to a place where hunting and fishing rights have been reinstated without needing to go through a federal court judge. It's gonna be the shortest version of that, Betsy.
Yeah, the memo I read was definitely much longer, but that's the general census.
Yeah, definitely. So if I'm going to likely have a letter of support going out from the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, and I will send it to others if you are interested in adding to that. And it's really on reservation lands, so it doesn't affect beyond that at the moment. Okay, great. Thank you, Betsy, for being aware of that, and thanks for getting on it. That's excellent. I did want to ask you, Betsy, do you, I only heard about the president's making it so that health insurance companies can cover the cost of rapid at-home tests for COVID. Do you have more information on that? Or could you get more information for the folks that are on the roundtable?
I don't have information, but clarify the question so I can ask.
Yeah, so the president announced that here on out, health insurance companies would be required to cover the cost of at-home COVID tests. I think as part of the kind of ramped up efforts to address the Omicron variant. Can you get us more information on what that looks like for each individual? Like when is it started, right? So how does it work? Like if you don't have health insurance, can you still get them? Does Medicaid and Medicare cover it? Some of those details I think would be helpful for people to know so that we actually get it happening as opposed to just, oh, there's some people can get these tests.
On it. I'll reach out to our folks, our healthcare folks.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we go off of Betsy's updates, are there any other questions or comments for Betsy? Okay, great. Then I'm going to go to Mayor Watkins. Mayor Watkins, what's happening in your community that you'd like to share with people today?
First, I have to stop video and then put on audio just to be sure. Well, the first thing that's happening is obviously my internet isn't getting any better. I don't know what's going on there. So we're really looking forward to some of those infrastructure efforts we're working on for internet. I'm trying to think. We had our Christmas tree lighting last, what was that, Saturday night, and so we've got our tree up, and if you want to get pictures of yourselves taken in a light tunnel, come on out, because we do have the big light tunnel in the archways in the upper park with the clear lights in it. So it seems to be a really popular feature. So we're doing that again this year. Oh, other than that, it's just, we've got our sewer and our water systems are, especially with some of the new water lines that we've put in and some of the new work that we've done on our water system, our sewer and water lines in town, the delivery lines are having a nervous breakdown is a good way to put it. And so our guys are doing a lot of repair work. They are very, very busy right now, just repairing one leak and one blowout after another. So that's a real concern for us as we're looking at some of the grants and some of the things that we're talking about here, those infrastructure grants. Other than that, it's really been pretty quiet. Everybody's been focusing on Christmas and getting ready for the holidays. And we've just been chugging along, trying to stay the course. So.
Mayor Watkins, I have a question. I was looking through my notes recently, and I remember that when I was out there, we were talking about City Hall and a community center. And I'm just curious kind of where that conversation is, because that's a big funding opportunity, like community facilities.
Yes, odd you should bring that up, because that's one of the main topics of conversation tonight. We're having our city council meeting is this evening. And the architects that started on the project 2 years ago have not given up on us, which we really appreciate. They've been great. They're really wonderful people. And anyway, so they're going to be coming in this evening during our work session and giving us kind of a rundown on what they've got, what their schedule would be, and how they were planning out, some of the basics for getting the project started. If the council agrees to it, then we will be voting this evening on approving the funding and getting them started on that. So we are actually at the point where hopefully by this evening, we'll finally get the green light to seriously get started on it. Holst is at the architects, and I mention that because they have just been amazing. They're just really nice people, and they've done a lot of work for us that given some of the things that happened, I'm surprised they didn't just wash their hands and say we're done, but they have done a lot of different, just bringing us in options for square footage and how much it would cost in different square footage areas. And one of the things that we're definitely looking at with that project is a community room and community space. That is one of we did a survey with the folks in town, just kind of a self-selecting, but we got some really good, actually really good response for a self-selecting survey. And a community, some kind of a community center is definitely high on everybody's list. I mean, that's a really big thing. That library, which we were happy to hear about. And I think those were the two big things. Oh, and historical information, some kind of a historical display were the big things that the community was looking at. So what they're doing right now is just checking to see, they're going to be giving us an idea of how much square footage each staff person would need, and what we're going to be looking at in terms of square footage for the existing staff and also for expansion, because we're looking at something that's going to last us a few decades. So that's where we are. So yeah, after this evening, I should have more information for you.
It looks like Betsy is searching for unmute.
There we go.
Yeah, and my Zoom window, because I was trying to update my project list. Yeah, once you have an idea of like price tag, as my constant question. I would love to hear more about that, just because, I know that that's a big bucket of funding that's coming forward, and I also think it would be a competitive. I just think there's an interesting frame there. So just keep me updated as that develops.
I will mention to Shannon also that you would like that. So hopefully by tomorrow or the next day, we can get you an update out on what's going on. Thank you.
I was actually just going to ask you, where are you going to get the money? So
it's kind of like there's a book written about dog training that's called "And Bones Will Rain from the Sky."
I love it.
It's kind of what it feels like.
Optimistic.
Yeah, you just want to have the storms where you are, or at least a little bit of the storms of bones.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
And Betsy, there is a source of funding for kind of city hall or community spaces. Is that what you're suggesting?
So it's called, and this is both within CDS. So what we'll go over in January, there's like a strong set of funds for community facilities, emergency communications facilities, and updating that type of stuff, whether it's construction or rehab. So I've been trying to think, a lot of that funding went towards like shelters and things like that, but I know that so many of our communities have libraries and, a lot of city hall needs, a lot of things like that. So I'm also just trying to keep my ear to the ground.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to be looking at emergency facilities included in that. The decision has been made, we've talked several times, and the decision, I think, is pretty much, if we go forward, it's going to be a single building, and it will include emergency services and as well as community facilities. So trying to roll it all into one ball. Yeah,
that makes sense. And are you, maybe you're going to decide tonight, but is the plan to have it on the site that you currently have?
Yes, it will be a single building, and it will be on the site where we're currently sitting right now. We'll have to, there's been so much research done, and that building is just, it's kind of scary, but it definitely is going to go away. The two buildings, the one that the police department is in, and then next door to us, and then the city hall, they will both have to come down. Those buildings are built with cinder block, and there was no reinforcement put anywhere in them. So.
Well, the nice thing is that they're small, so.
Yeah, exactly.
But I believe that the city of Amity also has cinder block, right? If I'm remembering this correctly, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of them built that way. We're hoping, and we've asked the architect to pay special attention to energy efficiency and green features as much as we can that way too. So we'd like to see something that really is energy and environmentally sound. So, okay, enough.
Well, good luck.
Yeah.
I hope the meeting goes well tonight.
Yeah, well, keep your fingers crossed for us. Our council is pretty conservative, but they also realize, I think, that hopefully they realize that we really need to get this done. It's been a 3-year conversation or more.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we are doing the second round of our space needs analysis for the county campus, because as you know, there's a lot of buildings in the county campus downtown, and also a lot of buildings that, for example, don't have ADA accessible. They're not accessible at all, and they don't have fire sprinkler systems. So we have our own thing that we're doing. And because we're in charge of managing the courthouse as well, there's a lot of different pieces to it. So we're going to have lots of conversations just like you are, including, are the bones falling from the sky? So I will keep that in mind. There is money specifically for public health infrastructure. And as you all probably are familiar with, our public health building really doesn't provide all of the services that we need it to provide. And it is constantly in need of major upgrades. So that's a space that we will likely identify before others for a significant change, but stay tuned. And Mayor King, I'd love to invite you to give an update to the community and then to the rest of us here.
Yes, thank you. I'm also having a wonky internet day, so if I need to stop my video, please speak up and let me know. I'll start off. We have some holiday news to share. Last Friday, Amity did their light parade and tree lighting, which was a huge success. Many thanks to our fire district and our downtown improvement group, city staff, and public works. 300 gift bags were handed out this year, which was a third more than last year, and they all got taken up. I'm estimating 800 people were lining the streets in Amity altogether. So it was amazing. I was up at City Hall and just feeling the energy in the air. It was one of the first holiday celebrations of the season, and it was really enjoyed. So happy about that. And then the city will also be doing their 10th annual Christmas Done Bright contest again this year. And so that's just a decorating contest around town. We have best decorated home, yard, business, and then Mayor's Choice. And so on Friday, the 17th, after dark, myself and the community engagement crew of council members will be doing some judging, and we'll let winners know the next day on that Saturday. So
that's some pressure.
I know. And to be honest, when I first heard about this, I was like, well, where's the equity in that? You have to be able to afford lights and you have to be able to afford decorations. But I've really come to find out this tradition is really embraced. And the fact that there's so much decoration, that it's enjoyable to everyone. You know, there's no cost. There's anyone can come through Amity and get pleasure from the contest. So I'm happy that we've chosen to continue that. At last council meeting on the 1st, we were able to update our franchise agreement with Recology, which was a goal of mine because we'd had the same agreement since 1999. I'm slowly working through these very outdated contracts, and so council accepted that. And then also our new rate, there was a 6.5 increase for the city's customers, but that was better than expected, giving some changes within the company, and we got assurance that Riverbend will not be used in the future of this contract for our city. So that went over well, and the council was happy with what we got there. After 2+ years, we got the okay from USDA to go to bid on our water intake and treatment plant upgrade project. Long awaited, the MOA is completely signed. They have the paperwork. Keller, our engineers, are sending out a few finishing touches, but then we should be ready to go to bid in January. So huge.
So exciting.
Yes, it very much is. And then lastly, to that note, Gary Mathis, our public works superintendent, updated us that year to date, because we've kind of been going on the same schedule. Amity has pulled 13.11 million less gallons from the river. So that's 13 million less in losses through our system because of improvements and fixes. So
that's such a big deal.
Yeah, we're very
I remember
happy.
he was talking about like 100, possibly 100,000 gallons per day in some situations.
Yeah, so we're picking up momentum, and as these multiple projects come in, I hope to see that increase exponentially with each fix. So very proud of the work that's been done, and lots of people are helping us along in this process, and it's really making a difference.
Betsy, think about how many more fish that represents, like, who have water in the river. I don't read lips, but that's okay.
Little fishies. That's what I said. Save the salmon.
Of course, I mean, farmers did get regulated off the South Yamhill, so there may be extra water for farmers as well.
I also wanted to mention, because Commissioner, you've been in these meetings but I've heard, and you've heard from ODOT giving out some initial information on the Infrastructure Investments and Job Acts and how that will affect Oregon. And so there's some exciting numbers, projections coming out of ways that all of our transportation, the current program funding will be increased through 2026. So I'm doing my research to best jump on potential opportunities, but it's really good news across the board for our state.
It really is. And I feel like there's so many different places where a city like Amity, especially with having 99 and is it 153, whatever, Amity Bellevue Highway going through town, that there's so many different opportunities to get funding for the work that's needed.
And
Betsy
you.
was.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, I was just gonna say I put a link in the chat with like a PowerPoint presentation of ODOT's kind of thinking about what they're gonna spend money on. And also another thing I'll flag is so it's 5.6 bill. What are numbers? There's a million numbers floating around in my head, but I think it's 5.6 billion over the next 5 years. And so I would think, like, if you have projects that you want to lobby to get on the stack or the STIP, the Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Plan
Improvement, yeah.
Yeah, I think that those are things that you might want to be thinking strategically around, because I know that document will guide a lot of their priority projects. So if you don't have your projects on there, maybe reach out to ODOT. I can help kind of try to set that conversation up if you need me to.
Right, and that's a really good point. And Mayor, I was just at ODOT's big open house where they were offering comment from the public. And multiple people were advocating specifically on removing a dam, which I thought was really interesting. There's a dam on the Clackamas that's adjacent to an old Highway 99 bridge, 99E. And so I realized, it's not just the STIP, there's also the grant-based funds as well, for it sounds like fairly creative uses. Or maybe it's not, and they don't have any chance in getting it. I think I interrupted Mayor at some point there.
Oh no, it was the Kellogg Dam, I believe they were talking about, and I was just gonna thank you, Commissioner, because your comments seemed well received and they encompassed all of Yamhill County's needs. So thank you for that. I was about to drop off because it had been a very long meeting, and I saw you were about to speak, and I'm like, I can wait 10 more minutes. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. How can I get everything in the county into 1.5 minute testimony?
You spoke very quickly.
I apologized to Dave Hageberg from the bypass committee that I didn't just talk about the bypass, but I was like, there's a lot of Yamhill County besides the bypass. And really, as I pointed out, when I hear from people about road issues, it's almost always either speeding on a county road that's just been paved, or it's a dangerous intersection. And those dangerous intersections, we often, as county commissioners and as mayors, you don't have a lot of jurisdiction because they're where a county or a city road hits a state highway. And so I've been trying to remind them, these aren't expensive fixes, or they don't have to be expensive fixes, but residents die at them if you don't fix it.
And another great comment that you brought up was the fully funding safe routes to schools, because I know, at least especially for us small rural communities, that is a major safety issue, and it's a need that we struggle to meet. And so just knowing there's so much need, I think that that's a really, good place to put some of those additional funds.
Right. At one of our MWAC meetings, I learned that they've lately been getting 8 times as many applications as they have funding for, or the total dollar figures are 8 times as much as what they can fund. And these are all projects that are actually, equally worthy, were quotation marks, but they all fit all the criteria of improving access for and safety for students. And like it's a small fund, and so even if you just did 8 times, right, it's like $40 million versus $5 million, which is like one engineering plan. Apparently, I learned that an engineering plan will cost $70 million for a bridge.
Yes, and one last highlight to bring up before I'm done is that it was noted that Oregon is on a 900-year bridge replacement cycle. And so with these funds, they hope to move down to a 600-year cycle of bridge replacement. So to say we're behind on that is a polite way to put it.
And here I was advocating that they take the money from state bridges and send them to city and county bridges. And the reason I'm advocating for that is that, you know, for $1 million, you can hardly get anything done with a state bridge. Like you can replace some stuff, but with 200,000, you can completely rehab a county bridge or a city bridge and have it, you know, be earthquake resilient for years and years and years. And so it feels like that. I realize that state highways are really important, and that if we had a big one, we need that state highway. But it's really, if we have a big one, we're going to have county and city bridges that are standing still all across the state. So that's always my plug to them. I'm like, Cooper Brown, who's the director of operations, I'm like, hear me on this one. I know you love your bridges, but we can spend the money a lot better. Or not a lot better, right? Just spread out. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you. I'm glad that you were on it too. It was a really weird meeting because I couldn't get onto it until everybody else had left, because the ODOT had set it up as a webinar, so there were like 400 people in the panelist section. I thought it was really funny. But thank you. It was really good to be there. And then do you have any other thing, or are there questions for Mayor King? Mayor Watkins is like on it. She's ready to unmute. No, she's not. Okay, that sounds great. Well, I'm gonna,
I was just congratulating you on the Christmas. It's I think one of the big things for small communities especially is our Christmas celebrations. And it sounds like Amity and Carlton had a lot of the same enthusiasm and a lot of the same ideas. So
that's super exciting. Well, I'm going to ask Pat Evans if he'd like to share anything about Turtledove or other things in the community. And I'm still recruiting him to do expert witness for broadband.
Well, we are giving out, excuse me, Turtledove number 38 on Friday. Turtledoves 39 and 40 are now under construction. There doesn't seem to be an end to the need. We did receive a generous gift of 10 sleeping bags yesterday, so that will help us begin to equip the Turtledoves as we give them out. We're still looking for mattress pads or camping mattress pads and anything warm weather gear. We're finding more and more people have less and less resources to get by this winter. So we're actually trying to step up to the plate, and with our very limited funds, when someone comes to us, we're trying to give them a fully equipped home, including food, clothing, bed, mattress, a reading light, and if we're able, we try to give them a warm jacket or some warm boots and gloves, so that they have a complete package. As I think I mentioned last time, we had one of the fellows just came out of prison with absolutely nothing. We've got another person getting out of jail on Friday with absolutely nothing. And unfortunately or fortunately, we're becoming better known to those resources, so that it seems that the demand is continuing. It's not escalating, but it's staying at a fairly good level. I anticipate we'll probably be in the vicinity of 60 to 70 turtle doves by next fall, if not more. So it's a need that's out there. This is the chronically homeless. If you look at the YCAP point in time counts, we're hitting about a third of that number right now with what we've done. It will probably be close to 50% of the chronically homeless that we'll have touched by the end of our fiscal year, which ends in August. That's all I've got.
And I wonder, since Betsy, I think this is the first time that you and Betsy have been on the call. I wonder if could you pull up a photo of one of the shelters if I give you screen share?
I can give it a try. Let me see.
I just Googled it, so I can
okay.
see them on your website. I'm curious, of course, this is the federal in me. How much do they cost? How much does one cost?
Oh, about the same price as a bridge.
It's like the best answer ever.
$1 million?
Actually, they cost, first of all, we have no labor charges at all.
Wow.
And so it costs us between $500 and $600 for materials to build one of those shelters. And then if we add any icing to the cake, like sleeping bags or blankets and the other gear that people need, it may kick it up another $100 on top of that. But yeah, it's a pretty economical investment. And as I was saying to Carrie when she stopped by yesterday, we don't envision this as a permanent solution. It's more like it's a Band-Aid until we could get some permanent SROs or some community residences established for this population. But it's certainly in high demand.
Yeah.
And
how I guess I'm curious how you find folks to give these to.
Well, there's a pretty good grapevine going on right now. And so we get referrals from other people that we've given them to. We also get them from the church, some of the churches locally, First Baptist here in Mac, Second Street Church, and Zion Lutheran over in Newburgh have been pretty good sources of referral. We haven't had any sources of referral from Amity or Carlton or Grand Ronde or any of the smaller cities. But we'd love to. I mean, if you've got folks there that need this service, please get in touch with us. As far as, the funding issue, I'm just on the verge, once I get all of my letters of recommendation in, hint, hint, to sending out a fundraising letter. I do that because Casey is...
I'm actually writing it right now.
Yeah.
Should I screen share it?
No, I actually need the verbiage to put into the fundraising letter, But as I say, it costs us, $500 to $600 a piece. We got, just by way of background, the mayors are familiar with this, but we use the initial funding from President Trump that was sent out a couple of years ago as our seed money, because we figured there were other folks that needed it worse than we did. So we used that as seed money, and then we probably raised another $15,000 or $20,000 since then from community members. We've had donations as high as $2,000 from one individual. We've had a whole lot of $100 and $500 donations, which has really helped. But we're getting down to under $6,000 right now in the kitty, and $3,000 of that is earmarked for product liability insurance. Unfortunately, which we have to have. As I mentioned last time, my wife drew the line at becoming a resident of a turtle dove shelter if we were sued. She would much prefer to keep a roof over our heads. So I had to acquiesce to that. So if the federal government's got $100 laying around loose somewhere, maybe Department of Defense has got some money they haven't found yet. They could send some over.
And their
Like
seven
not by a
trillion
hammer. Sorry.
and their $7 trillion bill.
And I say that as an 11-year veteran of the Marines and the Navy. No.
Well, Pat just needs one of those $1 trillion platinum coins, right? Wasn't that a thing?
I just need a rounding error is all that I need. I'm sure we all be happy with a rounding error from the DoD budget.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Pat. Are there any other questions or comments for Pat? I just want to keep Betsy asking questions, really.
I wanted to add for Betsy's sake that I was in a town hall meeting with Senator Merkley where he was given a short presentation about turtledove shelters and was able to have a little back and forth. So there are other people in the office that have some knowledge.
That's right.
It's always good to know what the boss has heard about. So thank you.
I think the boss set us a flag. If I'm correct, and it's in residence in my neighbor's office, because he's the one that I partner with to build these things. The average age of contractors here is 80 years old. So
Pat read my mind. I was going to say, remind me again, what's the average age?
it's about 80, a little over 80. He's 86 and I'm 78. So.
That's pretty good. Well, thank you for your work, Pat. And thank you, Betsy, for asking questions. All right, I need to do a county update, and it's great. I've ticked off several of the things, including the congressionally directed spending meeting that we need to have January 10th, testimony before ODOT for their spending priorities. And that's really around, what are they going to do with the flexible money that's coming to them from the federal government. I do want to note that the water and sewer infrastructure grant applications are due, I think, tomorrow, December 8th. So I know that there are some jurisdictions that have already submitted kind of a number of projects and proposals so that if we have 250,000, they're like, well, this is a good one. If there's, $1 million that's available for one, then there's another one. So hopefully, hopefully your jurisdictions have. I did mention again, broadband, and you both, both mayors have had challenges with it. I feel like one of the great challenges at the county level is that we don't have a staff member who's in charge of broadband. It's not something that we do, just like cities have never done broadband the way that you do sewer or water. But it does feel like at some point we need to, as a county, decide that it's important enough that even though counties don't do broadband, that we need to figure out how to actually do the lane of infrastructure or the setting up of accounts. So it's ongoing, but hopefully the conversations have started. I want to note that while we don't have Omicron in the county, the variant of concern, at least so far that I know, the presence of it in the state, in the country, has definitely bumped up the number of people who are getting vaccine boosters. So all of our clinics over the last week, since last Tuesday, have been just maxed out, including some at the schools where everybody ran out of supplies, syringes, and doses, and had to be moved to Yamhill County Public Health, where our main supply is. So it's a really good problem, but it's also, it's good and it's a problem at just getting the doses in. And we're still looking for vaccinators. So if you have an active medical license, Yamhill County Public Health would love to have you join them for a clinic or two or the whole week's worth, because that's right now the bottleneck. There is a sign-up form for any volunteers, but they're specifically looking for people who can give a shot in an arm. On Friday, we have the appointment process for replacing Bill Post for House District 25. And that's been an accelerated timeline multiple times in a row because we were going to appoint somebody December 29th. That was the timeline from the end of November being the day when he was formally not in office anymore till what was statutorily required. However, there's a short session coming up December 13th. And wisely enough, people thought it was important to have a representative for Newburgh and for the French Prairie and for Kaiser. So we are actually appointing them on the 9th. And interestingly, my understanding is that it's going to be an appointment meeting of the Oregon Republican Party that will provide the list of nominees. And then within a couple of hours, we will do the same process on the same day of appointing somebody from that list of three. So stay tuned. I did want to note, though, that means that there's a special session, and the special session is exclusively to approve funding to add to the Oregon Emergency Rental Assistance Program and to extend the eviction moratorium for at least 10,000 households who are at risk right now of eviction because their applications weren't moved through the process fast enough for past due rent. So if you have people in your community who know or who are really concerned about being evicted, if you can let them know that the process is moving forward, and after December 13th, there will be both more money available, and the window that they're prevented from being evicted is extended. So if you look at it from a couple of different ways, it's really good for landlords and it's really good for renters. I will note, however, that this is a federal issue that the state is going to be be waiting for a second round of emergency rental assistance that came through, I think, the American Rescue Plan funding. That money isn't going to come to the state until March, but we will have expended all of the money that came in the first round, and people still have a need and there's still a promise of money, but that money won't come until March. So the state has decided or legislators and the governor's office have decided to, in theory, to set aside money that's available to kind of bridge that gap between now or to cover applications between now and March. So Betsy, if you have any thoughts on that, and if you can shove it along faster, I know you can't, but still, it's important. And we've moved through it so quickly that I think that it wasn't expected that it would get moved out to landlords and to renters so fast.
I do know this is stateside, but I do know that I sat in on a meeting with OHCS recently, and we expended ours, we were the 8th state in the US to fully expend. And that includes, the state set aside a large portion at the beginning of the COVID before ARPA. And so they were the 8th state to fully expend both the state part that no other state set aside and the federal money. So if you take that state side out, we probably would have been number 3 or number 4. So it's a good
and the process was already set up
and
because we had that federal money. Sorry. Oh, go. What were you saying?
I was just going to say it's a good thing and it's a bad thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. There was money, I think it was called the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So it was maybe April of 2020, which had the kind of first round. And that really took groups like the Yamhill Community Action Partnership and took them from having a budget of $200,000 a year in rental assistance to $1.5 million in rental assistance. And then it was another one, and then the state dollars, and then the big federal dollars. So they've been doing this, a year and a half now, because there's a big need, obviously. But to that end, I'm super grateful for the federal work on this. So yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share. Just take a note that cases have started to tick back up in Yamhill County, probably associated with having a holiday where traditionally people gather and eat food. Fingers crossed that case counts continue to go down before or if Omicron gets here. So one of the things that our family at least has taken to doing is wearing really good masks when we're out and about. As opposed, I used to just have like a kind of really loose fitting cloth mask that somebody made for me in March of 2020. And I'm just wearing a KN95 right now that I wear it gets dirty and it's kind of gross, but it's clean, it's filtering, right? It's actually keeping me from getting other people sick. So something to think about out there. Are there any last thoughts?
I want to interject something while I'm thinking about it and have my notes. Last week, Mayor Watkins was talking about the highway reroute and redoing Main Street and the ADA ramps. And then in the MWAC meeting, there was a person from the ADA curb ramp program, and they stated that Carlton would be getting 92 ADA ramps in 2021 or 2022. So if she wasn't aware of that, I just wanted to put it out there in case the program managers are not, sharing information or getting it to who it should be.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I was like, gosh, I wonder if the mayor knows or Shannon, the city manager, knows about this.
God, doing this. We've been talking with ODOT. We're still, I'm not sure totally exactly what's going on with that. I know that we are going to be talking with them about the ADA ramps. The part of the problem is that we don't know exactly what's coming when, because part of the ramps will be done when they get started on doing certain parts of the city. Part of the ramps, they're going to be actually just giving us the money to do it when we start redoing Main Street. So in total, that may be what we end up with, but ODOT is not going to be doing them all at one time. It's going to be kind of phased in. And we're still trying to have some conversations with them about, how this whole thing is going to go. So it's just been difficult trying to get reacquainted when, we had a team and then we're getting a completely new group of people, and it's, in a way, it's just going back to square one. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, good heads up though.
I just had this worst case scenario of like they put them in and then have to rip them out and tax money wasted. So I thought, I'm just going to put it out there, but it sounds like there's communication going on, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, literally they could do that at the curve where there's going to be the new reroute. And if there was.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what they made the choice to do. And 2 years ago, we were talking about that, doing exactly that. So that's kind of where they're going. And I guess the STIP now has been federally approved too, to do this realignment project. So, we have all of the approvals that hopefully we need. So now it's just a matter of working it out.
Well, that's exciting. All right, any final thoughts? Thank you for adding that. All right, well, be careful out there, everybody. Wear a mask and get your booster, and we'll see you next week.